Hey guys, David here. So we got a new Marvel movie, so that kind of comes with the territory that not only do I review said movie, but I'm of course going to be doing a spoiler discussion. And of course, needless to say, if you have not seen Doctor Strange, I highly recommend you close this video, go see the movie. You still got time, it's not going anywhere. Go see the movie, come back, and check this out. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some spoiler stuff that happened in Doctor Strange, which, frankly, I don't think there's really not that many. There's not too many things to really go through, except a couple of meaningful ones towards the end of the movie. But for the most part, it was kind of a clean-cut origin story, which was sadly one of my slight gripes with the movie, where I said that the template kind of follows a familiar beat that we've seen before, not only with superhero movies in general, but just the Marvel universe. But there's little things to kind of take a bite out of. So let's go ahead and tackle a couple of them. One of them would have to be the dark dimension, which imposes this big threat into the dimension that Earth is inside of, the planet Earth is inside of, as well as probably our galaxy. And we learned that Cassilis, I was mentioning his name wrong in the review, I'm sorry, I kept saying Cassius for some reason, but it was Cassilis, whatever, Mads Mikkelsen's character, our main villain. He was simply a pawn being played by this bigger villain in the background named Dormammu, whatever. I gotta be honest, at first, based on how they kept like showing the eyes in quick glimpses, I thought, okay, just another mystical name for Thanos, he's pulling the strings, obviously. Because that's kind of what all these movies are leading into, especially Phase 3. But as the movie went on, and we got a reveal of Dormammu at the end, I don't know why I was so naive, but I was under the impression that if it wasn't for Fox owning the rights, that character would have been Galactus, because they kept calling him the Destroyer of Worlds, and I'm like, don't you mean Devour? I keep thinking you want to say Devour, but because of Fox over there, they're looking at us. They're looking at us. You don't say that. They're looking at us. They're giving us the stink eye. Don't say Devour. Don't just say Destroy Worlds. Can we do that? A legal team are saying that we can do that. Okay, so if we can do that, let's do it. But as soon as I get home, I do a little bit of research, and it turns out that Dormammu is in fact a very big villain within the universe. Well, this separate universe settled for Doctor Strange. He is not so much a big of a villain like Thanos is for the rest of the Avengers team, but he's big enough to go up against Doctor Strange, and he does in fact do that at the end of this movie in a scene very much inspired by Groundhog Day, which is funny because I just recently watched that movie for my film school class, and that's the first thing, and Bill Murray's face was the first thing that popped into my head while watching Doctor Strange. How appropriate. My only question about that whole thing is, are we going to be seeing the Dark Dimension again later on in the universe? Not necessarily with Phase 3, but maybe with the new Avengers. Maybe it's a thing to kind of introduce us to this other dimension, and then maybe our new Avengers, after the contracts for Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth kind of are up, and they have to move on to bigger and better things. I don't want to sound morbid, but it's going to happen. Are we going to have to settle with new Avengers going into this other dark dimension? And what's going to necessarily be waiting for us on that other end? Is Dormammu going to be coming back? Is Mads Mikkelsen's character going to be coming back? Because they kind of made it seem like maybe he got killed off, but at the same time he kind of turned into like that black looking ashy figure, as well as his henchmen that were kind of turned into like these black ashy figures, and then were kind of whooshed away back into that dimension. We don't see a body being torn apart or being killed, so should they be returning later on? Who knows? There was also some other usual Easter eggs that you find in the Marvel movie, but because this was an origin story that was solely focused on Doctor Strange, and that was the main emphasis, because obviously we're introducing him, we kind of have to focus on him and not be constantly mentioning the Avengers. There's that one line by Wong where he says the Avengers are the ones that deal with the physical stuff on Earth, while we deal with the other dimensional type stuff. And you've heard that line in the trailers, and for the most part, that's probably the most on-the-nose reference to the Avengers, besides seeing the Avengers Tower in the background, a couple of things here and there. There was one subtle one that I might be wrong about, because I didn't even notice it. My girlfriend was the one that actually pointed it out to me on the way home. She said that at the beginning, he's driving in the car and he asks his assistant saying, hey, I got these people, if you want to check them out. And he's like, next, because none of them appeal to him. They don't challenge him. My girlfriend said that apparently one of those patients that the assistant mentioned fit the description of a certain Rhodey Rhodes, who just recently got incapacitated in Civil War and is in need of a doctor. So I'm not sure. I'm going to have to go and do some research on that. I haven't looked it up, but my girlfriend said that she heard something like that being mentioned, and I completely missed it. So the Ancient One dies. Saw that coming. I'm sorry. That was the one thing I mentioned in my review that I just saw from a mile away, because we always have that mentor figure who either has to be incapacitated or killed off so that our main hero gets the motivation to kind of triumph over the villain. And it happens again here. And that goes back to what I was saying in that review, following that template that we've seen before. And it's something that I was hoping that would be kind of risky with, especially since they kind of made it seem like she was going to become a villain. They touched upon that a little bit here, where she was sucking some energy from the Dark Dimension to kind of keep herself alive all these years. But after that, they follow that trope of killing her off so they can motivate Strange to overthrow the bad guy. Besides that, there's nothing in the main movie that I can really pick apart. I might have overlooked some things, so please let me know in the comments below. Were there any Easter eggs that I didn't look at properly? Please let me know, because there's got to be at least something that I did not pay attention to. So with that being said, let's move on to those end credit scenes. We got two once more, one in the middle and then one at the end. Both very interesting. It left me with an awful lot of questions, but it's a good thing for an end credit scene to do and not the main movie. The first one was Doctor Strange being visited by our favorite Asgardian, Thor, enjoying his humongous mug of beer. The man loves his beer. And it is in this scene where we learn that Doctor Strange would make a killing as a bartender, refilling it. Oh my god, that is an absolute dream. Oh yeah, and it turns out that Thor brought Loki to Earth because they're looking for his father, their father, Odin. What? Surely this is going to be a big plot device used in Thor Ragnarok, but what makes it interesting is that this is kind of, to a point, kind of answering a big question that we had since Thor the Dark World, is what happened to Odin? Because at the end, it's revealed that Odin was actually Loki in disguise. What happened there? And we kind of start to see a development with that within this very small scene, and I'm looking forward to seeing if if this is kind of a way of saying Doctor Strange not only will return for Infinity War, but he's going to have at least one scene where he kind of points Thor and Loki in the right direction in Thor Ragnarok. Plus, you know that in superhero movies, whenever there's a sequel, there's a reappearance of a character, they have to have the much more faithful interpretation of the costume. Anybody notice the yellow gloves that Strange was now wearing? That was actually kind of neat. And then the second end credit scene was, in my opinion, the most interesting one. I mean, sure, we had Thor appear in the mid-credit scene, but we're used to these team-ups. Though I will admit that being that Strange is a brand new character, seeing him with Thor was actually kind of neat. But it was that second scene that had me thinking a little bit more than that previous one. The second scene that has Mordo, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, tracking down that dude that Strange sought out to kind of lead him to this temple and to learn about his powers and all, and the Ancient One and all that stuff. Mordo tracks this guy down and takes away his power, rendering him pretty much a paraplegic for the rest of his life, which is kind of sad. But this scene painted Mordo as almost like a villain, and considering his decision to kind of walk away from Strange's path that he was going to follow, does that mean that Mordo's now going to be a bad guy? That I'm much more interested with, and that would actually make for a very cool villain, because we saw his compelling turn to being a villain in this movie. We saw his origin story, something that we kind of didn't see with Casillas or whatever. I mean, there were a couple of lines mentioned here and there about how his family died and how he felt like he was being led astray by the Ancient One, blah blah blah, but we didn't see. And that's a screenwriting tip for some of you who are looking forward to being a screenwriter in the future. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I'm not an Ancient One myself, but something that I definitely had to agree with an awful lot of my peers and my teachers at film school is that a rule that you need to follow is show, don't tell. And that's what I loved about Loki's tragedy in the first Thor movie that made him a great villain, was that we saw how that tragedy unfold. Here, we just hear it being mentioned by characters. We don't actually see it, so we don't really resonate with Cassilis. However, if Mordo's going to become a villain in the next Doctor Strange movie, which that's another thing I loved, is that the first end credit scene was something for the big MCU. Second end credit scene was actually something big for the Doctor Strange storyline exclusively. And being that we saw Mordo go from good guy to potential bad guy within this movie, seeing him as a villain in the next one, is actually something a bit more believable and something that I can buy more into. So should his character get killed off in that second movie, it's gonna hurt me. It's gonna hurt me because I had this other movie to connect with him and to kind of get where he's coming from. So it's going to make for an even bigger tragedy and a sadder moment should that happen in the next one. So like I said, if I overlooked something in the movie that I did not mention in my spoiler discussion, then please let me know in the comments below, because as far as I can tell, that really about does it. And I had an awful lot of fun with the movie. I really liked it, almost loved it if it wasn't for the familiar tropes that we've seen Marvel do in many of these movies. But at least some of the stuff that we kind of saw in the background made for paired off with the visuals, made for a movie that I really would not mind revisiting. So please sound off in the comments what you think of certain parts of the movie. It's a spoiler discussion, so go nuts. People have been warned, so there shouldn't be a problem. Like and share this video. Please subscribe for more coming from this channel if you guys liked it enough. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm going to go ahead and drink some water because I'm going to be losing my voice. If only I could turn this water into Red's Apple Ale. That would be awesome.